Welcome. In this video, I'll describe how to set up your computer for the gentle, hands-on introduction to Python course. Feel free to follow along and pause the video at any time. VSCodium is a programming editor used by professional programmers, often called an Integrated Development Environment, or IDE. So, click on the link to VSCodium. Should open a browser, and this is what you should see. Find the install button, click download latest release, and find the appropriate download for your operating system. If you are running Windows, you want to find a file ending in MSI, this one, x64 MSI. I'm going to click on that and it will download in the background. While that works, if you are on Apple OSX, then you're probably looking for this x64 DMG. If you're on M1 or M2, you're probably looking for ARM64 DMG. If you're on Linux, you'll either want x86-64 RPM or the ARM64 DEB, depending on which package manager you're using. Meanwhile, VS Code is downloaded in the background. Go ahead and run the installer. If you're on Windows, you'll have to jump a few hurdles. Make sure you run it. VSCodium is entirely open source, so accepting the license is safe. While it's installing, you can close your browser. We don't need that anymore. Great. Make sure Launch VSCodium is clicked and press Finish. That will launch VSCodium. It will ask us for some customization to begin with. I'm not going to do any of that customization, so I'm saying mark done. Just a side note here for Mac OSX and Linux users, you should install Python at this point if you don't have it already. For Linux users, I trust you will be able to do it yourself to install the correct package for your distribution of Python 3. For Mac users, I'm about to show you now. Windows users can proceed to the next chapter. So this is how you install Python on OSX. Open a web browser. Go to python.org. Click on Downloads, All Releases. If you're on OSX, click on OSX. Latest Python 3 release. You will want the 64-bit Universal 2 installer. You can click and download that. Run it and follow the instructions that it gives you for installation. And now back to your regularly scheduled VSCodium setup. To get started, we'll need a single extension. Find in the left bar the 4 boxes and click on that. And we're looking for the Python extension. It happens to be the first in the list here. If it isn't for you, you can search for Python, and you want the one published by MS Python. Install. That will install in a couple of minutes. Once that extension is installed, we can close these extra windows. We don't need them anymore. And we also don't need this. The next thing we're going to do is tell VSCodium about the Python interpreter we're using. And that, for me, and possibly for you, will require installing Python. So on Windows, this is quite simple. Type Control-Shift-P, type Python in the window that pops up, and scroll down until you find Select Interpreter. Python Select Interpreter. Click on that. At this point, if you're on OSX or Linux, you should already have Python installed. So you should just be able to select your interpreter from the list and your setup is complete. And it will say Python is not installed. Please download and install it. Click. That will open the Windows Store from which we can install Python. Once you log in, you should be presented with a button to get the Python interpreter. So I'm going to click Get, and Python will install. Once it finishes installing, you can now close the Microsoft Store, and once again type Control-Shift-P, type Python, find Select Interpreter, and you now should have a Python interpreter. You can click here. And now you're ready to begin the course.